All right, I think we have now reached our perfect time to begin. It's 10 o'clock here in Central Europe. Welcome, everyone. Good morning to our webinar. So I'm delighted to see quite a few of you here this morning, and just going to go ahead and begin. So my name is Sascha Fahrbach, and I'm the Cybersecurity Evangelist here at Fudo Security. And with me today on the session is Rafal Wiosna, who is a very experienced pre-sales engineer here at Fudo Security. So our topic today, as you've probably seen, it's cybersecurity best practices during COVID-19 and remote work. Just some housekeeping issues. We'll be taking approximately 1 hour for this session. If there are any questions, please do save them till the end. That would be great, and we'll get to them at that time. Also, please, in the format we're using Google Hangouts, which is great, and but you all have the opportunity to unmute yourselves. So please, for the sake of everyone understanding and hearing everything, please keep yourselves muted. Hopefully you can see the screen. The slides will be made available to you after our session. Also, we're going to be recording this session, just so you know. This will then also be available to you for review at a later time. Okay, so let's get going. So a little bit about Fudo Security. We're a leading PAM vendor based with our headquarters in Silicon Valley in California, with major operations as well, and an office in southern Germany, also in Warsaw in Poland. We're quite proud of what we've put together over the last about 10 years, with now approaching 100 global partners that are spread out through 30 countries in every major continent. Also recognized for our work and what we've done and achieved. Quite recently in the Kuppinger Cole Leadership Compass 2020, and they did a piece on us there, which really highlights our strengths and shows that what we're doing is being noticed. Right. So let's go on. So a little bit of a recap of what we're going to be covering today and what we'll be talking about. So I know that the topic of PAM is probably very familiar to many of you, but I'm just going to go over that really briefly just to make sure we're all on the same page. Then we're going to be discussing some strategies of how to keep your data safe and secure. They're going to be discussing how the limitations of VPNs actually look, and what can be done to offset and overcome that. Then furthermore, how to ensure your business and staff are working safely in a remote work environment. Then also we're going to be showing off how AI-powered biometric prevention and recording can not only protect your organization business, but actually help your business grow. Right. Okay, so going into PAM, what is that? Privilege access management, as many of you know. The fundamental problem there being that there are hundreds and thousands of connections that are there, access at different areas that are available. We're talking about root accounts, we're talking about admin accounts, we're looking at switches and routers and servers, and it's all about those core admin root accounts, which can be used to modify critical things. We're talking about the proverbial keys to the castle, and of course, there are far too many that have proliferated over the years. And as we know, if you keep up with the news and cybersecurity, info security, there are countless breaches which are reported on pretty much every day. This leads to reputational damage and unfortunately leads to financial damage. PAM affects everyone. PAM is an industry-wide approach. It's something that affects everyone from finance into banking, government, infrastructure, energy, utilities, HR, you name it. I mean, at this point, there are privileged accounts which are necessary for day-to-day business functions. They've only increased over the last 20 years, and as I said before, have proliferated quite significantly into many users. In many cases have proliferated too much. Is that the one problem is that people have these accounts, have these privileged access accounts, and they are forgotten, They are not then disabled after there's an employee switchover. So this is where PAM comes in. And it's not sufficient, as we have discussions with our clients and partners, to be able to offer simply firewalls or to simply offer VPNs, which VPN, of course, is a good solution, but we're going to get into that, why it's not enough. And of course, multi-factor authentication, all these things as well. But only with PAM, with privileged access management, are you able to really look at what's happening about that monitoring, that recording and auditing of those remote access sessions, very much as if you were standing behind someone and looking over their shoulder. Right, so going also a little bit into why this matters in the bigger picture, also looking at these kind of tips from our side, from a cybersecurity vendor, and this is also all building up to why PAM matters so much. So on the first point, I'm going to be talking about good password hygiene, and I think this might seem a no-brainer to many of you, but you'd be surprised at how many high-level individuals, how many high-level organizations, in particular, also military and government, have extremely poor password management. What I mean by that is simple passwords, shared passwords, reusable passwords. That once you have that, we know where that goes. That goes into serious damage, serious trouble for any organization. I mean, look back at pretty much the whole password leak with LinkedIn, where about 117 million emails and passwords were leaked, and they were quite simple. And you can imagine where that leads with credential stuffing and all these attacks, which then can lead to quite serious repercussions. So it is still vital to have a good password management. It is good still to have in place secure passwords, and of course anything that can be utilized to offset that danger, of course, is very important. Now, I think, Rafal, I'm going to pull you in on this particular point here in your experience. I mean, it's a no-brainer, as I said, but what's the situation with password management at the moment? Do you see that as a problem?
Yeah, I think there are two problems with passwords. The number one thing is password sharing, so people share passwords amongst each other, and also one password for accessing core crucial systems, which is usually the case when it comes to networking equipment. You have admin and some passwords shared by multiple administrators. So a good PAM should address both of those issues and de-anonymize the session, even if they are used to or they cannot change the password on the network device. They could access this one account in a way that you know that this person accessed this network switch, and this was him or her, not some admin coming from IP behind firewall.
Exactly, right. So again, it's an important point to make, and that leads us right into my next one about cyber resilience. So this is a term that's come up recently, especially now with the advent of more and more remote working, and also with the idea that more people now really need to be involved into the whole security strategy. And of course, being an evangelist for cybersecurity, and that's a very core principle of what we do with Fudo Security, and it's a very personal issue for me. So what does that mean? In practice, it means that we need to find ways where we have resilience by design in process and in whatever we do. So rather than having security be the remit of the IT department, by the remit of some distant department or individuals, we are now in a point where every single individual at a company, no matter the size of the organization, needs to be aware and needs to be fully connected to the process, what that means to keeping access and data secure. So that means that the board needs to be as accountable as the manager, as the frontline worker in whatever capacity. Now, with many companies working remotely, it's become even ever more important. So that means discussions. Right now, I will also drop this in. We're in Cybersecurity Awareness Month. It's a big event this entire month, so this is exactly the time to have these discussions, to look at what your strategy is. How are you accessing those data points? What's happening with your passwords? Are you using a PAM solution or not? So the idea of talking about security is more present now and more important than ever. So this is why a foster cyber resilience culture is needed. Whatever other elements that you take, it's not just a box ticking exercise. This needs to be really embedded into the lifeblood of how people work, because security is here to stay, and still people are not taking it at that really important value as it needs to be taken seriously. Moving into also updating and patching regularly. That is crucial for everyone. That is necessary. That is something so simple that is still not done. And I think that's another key point here, is that when you're not updating, you're missing a lot of the work that has been done by professionals, that has been done to make sure that your systems and your data are safe. So it is another simple step, but it is also absolutely very, very difficult to master because people are still not doing it. They're postponing these updates, and I think that is really fault.
And I might add that even now you can find RDP servers that are still accessible from internet that are vulnerable to RDP attacks, for which the patch was published like 2 years ago or so. So yeah, this is a very important point.
Yeah, and I mean, just as you mentioned there, I remember we'd covered this in a previous, I think, webinar discussion, Rafal, that with RDP attacks being so now more prevalent in the last few months, I think in that McAfee report not so long ago, they've gone from like, I think 2 million to about almost 5 million in a few months. And I think the big target for a lot of attackers right now, as more and more RDP, and we know that connection to the internet is there, and it's a huge vulnerability, a huge weakness. So as you said rightly, Rafal, it is a big issue, and it's there, it's present, and it's affecting everybody. As I briefly mentioned earlier, VPN is, of course, something that individuals are using, that certain contractors are using, that some companies are utilizing in some way, shape, or form. And I'm not going to say that it's bad. And it's definitely a good first step. But the question is, does it work on a large scale? Is it practical? Rafal, VPN, is it enough to secure your data?
Yeah, well, it's a first step, but when you give VPN access to users, you only see who's connecting, and you don't really know who's doing this, and you don't really know if the person that is connecting is actually the person that should be connecting. Maybe this is another person with the user's credentials used to establish the connection. So there are many vectors for breaking in using VPN. So definitely the VPN is not enough.
Indeed, right. So as I said, this is just a small snapshot of many other best practices, ideas, strategies that you can use in your organization. Of course, these are all important. They should all be done collectively in a uniform manner. But of course, what we need to really focus on is what is at the end. The target is always your data. And right now we're living in that time. We're living in a hacker's delight. Right now we have more ways than ever for hackers, for malicious actors to get into valuable points in your organization for and to get access to your data, to exfiltrate data. And we know that the average breach time before it's detected can be, up to a year. So if we're looking back, and Rafal, you are experienced, but I will say you have many years of experience, of course. In those last 20 years, if we're looking at the situation in particular, we said the various vectors, the attack surfaces, there are more ways to get into data now. So give us your take on how that's changed.
Well, looking back, I can say that 20 years ago we weren't as connected as we are now. There were less applications and ways to do remote work or remote, I don't know, shopping, whatever. So it was like 10% of what we are using right now, especially after the the spring COVID outbreak, it all shifted to online. So there are more ways to get into the system. So it's more kinds of the systems. So there are more ways to attack them. And I can tell you that during those 10 or 20 years, hackers switched their strategy. Previously, they were just, this was a fast blow. So attacking, changing the web page, and that's it. Goal has been reached, and that's it. Now, their strategy is to get into your systems, stay a while, do a recon session, and start attacking or start downloading your data after like month, 2, 3. Those are targeted attacks. So this is very crucial to know if you are under such attack. Not a fast one, but this slow kind of attack that will hurt more than this fast blow, which you can recover very quickly, especially if it's just a web page that has been changed.
Yeah, exactly. So then, as we know that this is now a vulnerability, and connected with digital transformation that we're experiencing, this is still a very, very big point. Also, when I'm moving into internal, external factors, so very much what a PAM solution can do very much is protect things that are on the inside. So if we're looking at an insider threat, I mean, that is still a very, very, very important thing not to neglect. And looking at recent surveys, the 2020 Cost of Insider Threat Report by the Ponemon Institute and IBM, they've actually found that in their research, and over the last 2 years, that the number of incidents has actually increased by about 47%, right? So, I mean, and then the average, like if we're looking at most organizations, over 60% in their survey, that over 30 incidents per year for each organization, right? So we see that this is still a huge vulnerability and that's coming from the inside, and various reports still point to that. And looking at the news, there are different cases, be that a disgruntled employee, looking at IP theft, or just by mistake. Now that's the one thing I want to talk about for a second, excuse me, is that you still have this idea of willful malice. And I think in our industry, we often paint this picture that there are these very malicious forces out to get you and get your data, which is true. But the beautiful thing that I like very much about PAM is that it serves also as a tool. It's not just for those cases of keeping out evildoers, but it's very much a tool to protect your organization, to help business flourish and to help business continuity continue to grow. So it's a tool that can also be used to monitor activity within your workforce, now going to remote more and more, that's here to stay, that you can actually join, that you can actually collaborate and work on with your staff, with your team. And maybe someone will do something unwillfully. Maybe it's someone's first day, or maybe someone doesn't understand how certain processes work. And mistakes happen, we're all human. So the beautiful thing about PAM is that now this tool exists not just to keep everybody safe, but also to make sure everyone's doing the right kind of work. And I think that's a beautiful thing that we can say exclusively for PAM that many other parts of cybersecurity cannot. I mean, antivirus is a different thing. Here, it's a shield, but it's also a tool. And I think that's a beautiful thing that we have with PAM. Obviously, with COVID-19, as we mentioned, it doesn't really need more of an introduction. I mean, COVID-19 has changed and continues to change our world as we live it. And more to the point of remote work. I mean, if you think that remote work is going away, that's simply not true. Just last week, I think Microsoft made remote work a permanent option. The big tech giants have all led it, Facebook, Twitter. But also, recently in the summer, we have Fujitsu, who's having its office space and transitioning 80,000 workers to remote work. You think, okay, this is all software, but there's also the group PSA, which is a French automaker, which is connected to Peugeot and Citroën, Opel and Vauxhall. And their strategy is also including in the next few months to go and move operations remotely. We have Hitachi, we have Nationwide Insurance, and countless others that are going to include some kind of, let's say, medium-term to long-term permanent solution with remote work. So that just means, not everyone is an IT expert, but everyone is using technology, and everyone is going to be continuing to work. And some will be, and many of them will be, privileged users. So how are you going to protect your data? So this is no longer just a simple, let's say, insurance policy. This is now reality, and this is now something critical that you need now, that is no longer able to be postponed. So, I mean, I can throw statistics at you all day, but just going to give you a snapshot of where we're headed, and remote work is there to stay. And actually, with remote work, we found that in the last few months, we have a use case of that Rafal will mention in a little while, where we found something that PAM can actually do, which helps protect the workforce. And Rafal will get into that in a little bit. Right, so moving on here, just real quick on terms of the damage that we can see here, that there's reputational damage, and of course it goes into financial damage. So the average here, we can see $3.92 million for the cost of a global data breach. The amount of files that are taken, 25,575. That's the average size. Many more are larger. Looking at the dark net, you have hundreds and thousands and going into the millions of credentials from corporate accounts floating around at various prices. As I mentioned earlier, just earlier with the days, 279 days. That's the average time it takes to identify and contain a breach, with some being much longer. And also the penalties coming up now with different legislation, the compliance issue. I know no one likes compliance, but it's here to stay. We've got more and more governments around the world pushing that more. We've got GDPR across the EU, which extends obviously beyond the European Union. We've got PAPIA in South Africa now. We have the California law as well. So in Brazil, India, different countries. So compliance is here, and compliance is forcing big fines on companies. We've just seen that, I think, this week with more and more companies in Europe also being fined for these kind of infractions. One bit of damage that is not on here, which is actually now in the last few weeks, which happened in Germany. Often it's things are contained. Breaches are financial in nature mostly. Unfortunately, we have had a cyber attack at a German clinic, which inadvertently resulted in actually someone's death. So this is a sad precedent, but I will mention that for the healthcare sector, which has always been the most vulnerable, the highest amount of breaches and the average cost, that the damage can now cost lives. So that is something also to mention here. Right, what's the ideal way to keep secure? We said companies are choosing some virtual private networks, some are using some kind of systems with MFA. A password vault, also a way to keep things safe. The best strategy here, using all of them at once, of course, but that still is not enough. And that's why Rafal will go now into looking more at the details of what a PAM solution can do. And it's like a security camera for your privileged sessions. It's something that can keep you safe 24/7, 365 days a year. Let's see how it's deployed. Rafal, I'm going to hand it over to you now for the rest of the session.
Okay, thank you, Sascha. So basically, the main idea behind the PAM access is to separate the users. It can be either privileged users or just normal users working from home from your IT infrastructure. So the session is usually when you have a VPN, you connect to a VPN, then you connect to a server. Now you go, or your users go through PAM, which actively monitors the sessions. By actively, I mean it not only records the session, but it shifts from reactive tool to a proactive tool, using something that could be described as AI-based biometric review. So you record all the actions of your users, you analyze them in real time, and with if you have a CM system or you just want to receive some emails, PAM will tell you that this session looks strange. It differs from previous user sessions, and you maybe you should take a look at it. So you can cut the time from when the bridge is started to the time that you get to know about this situation very, very much. So it's no longer 279 days or so. You can, if you configure your PAM system right, you can get this kind of information in a matter of minutes or hours, or the next day if you're lazy enough to check the reports from last day, not online. So I can tell you about this case that we had with local, no, it's a large bank which operates locally in different countries. So there was, obviously, everybody has experienced this. We are called, we are heading for lockdown. So the bank decided to enable access to their to workstations for users from their own home. And of course, it was done in a very modern way, so adhering to zero trust policy. They wanted to have this access secure, so nothing from the workstation or laptop or I don't know, iPad in the worker home could be transferred to their infrastructure. So we came up with a deployment for 9 PAM nodes running all in a cluster, and the users, the workers or employees of this bank were connecting using VPN, secured with second factor. So they had to use again, adhering to zero trust policy, the one-time password. They were connecting through VPN to infrastructure, and they were instructed to go to this web page, which was served by PAM, and then they were able to reach their own workstations on the desk from their home. So there was a twofold separation for the infrastructure. One is connecting through PAM, and they were also the second level of separation was that every session was recorded, and there were never a direct connection between the user and the server or the workstation that they were connected to. So, yeah.
And really quick on that point too, Rafal, I just want to throw in there. We're talking about, that was, I think, a deployment for well over 2,000 individual users, right? And that was done in the span of about, I think, 24 to 48 hours.
In fact, it was over the weekend, so 24 hours was plus 16 hours of sleep. So yeah, we did it all over the weekend.
Indeed, right. So let's get into the nitty-gritty now of showing off what PAM can do.
Okay, so I will share my whole screen so you can see what I'm doing. Yeah, so let me show you how PAM works in our implementation. Obviously, I'm using Fudo PAM to show you around. I'm logging to this user access gateway. It was previously called portal, so that was the thing that those bank employees saw when they were connected. After the VPN connection, they just went for this web page that the bank has prepared for them, and they just used the Active Directory credentials to log in their portal or user access gateway. So basically what I have here is the list of servers that I have access to. And as you can see, these are not only RDP or SSH servers. I do have access to HTTP sites. So I can run a connection to, for example, our Azure cloud instance from the PAM itself. So it's again it maintains the separation between the user and the infrastructure. The user does not connect directly; it goes through PAM. The session is recorded, so and everything is kept in their place. There is no direct connection. So let me connect to one of our test servers. So I'll be running the RDP connection, and again, zero trust. So user is not using his credentials. He's using the token, which is valid for 300 seconds, and the token is valid only for this session. So I'm connecting. Okay, it takes a while because I'm using the traditional client, and as you can see, I'm connecting. I can do pretty much everything here, and let's see how it will looks on the server side in PAM. So let's log into our Guido to our administrative console, and let's take a look on the session list. So as you can see, the session is running. Notice this column with this flask icon. I will tell you what it does later, but it's great right now. So keep that in mind. Okay, so let me just open the session. So where you as an administrator or operator security officer, you can actually see what is going on with the user on the server. Mind that I'm running this in the cloud, so I'm coming from home via VPN to our cloud in AWS. So it takes a while. In LAN, in local network, it's instant. You get no delay on what you see in the left window, which is a preview window, and what the user does. I can check the user activity. So as you can see, let me type something, ipconfig. Yeah, you can see that PAM has recorded keystrokes. Of course, we do not show the passwords here, nor any kind of keystroke, because this would be a breach of security. But PAM will record the event of a user pressing a certain key with the key code, not the actual letter, but only the key code. Okay, so what I will do now, I can show you one cool feature of PAM, and this is sessions sharing. So let me share my session. So let's make it available for 1 hour only. And read only means that the users that will be connecting to this session won't be able to connect to the session itself. It's only a session that you can watch, not join. And I will show you how you can join the session. So Fudo generated token, which is in a form of a link. So let me just switch back to our meeting, and I will just send this link over on chat, so you can see for yourself. This session should open in your web browser. Don't worry, this is a Fudo generated link. It's not malicious. It's safe. You can open this session and see I'm really doing this online, and you can see this rendering in your web browser. So let me show what you can do with such a session. If there was read-only mode turned off, I could just join the session and start navigating. It means passing events, so keystrokes, mouse movements, mouse clicks. I can do this from the web browser window. And this is kind of important because, again, with zero trust, you can imagine a scenario when the administrator or contractor needs access to some kind of special system, or a system that is very important, that there should be no people from outside your company having access to. So an administrator will connect to this system and share this session one time only, available for 1 hour to this person. So this person can just join the session and do their work. Let me just whatever CMD, and let's see if we have the policies here enabled. Format. No, we don't have it enabled, but I could have configured a policy for user input. So when I type in, for example, format, or with database servers, you can have a policy reacting for a words drop table, or database. So you can have it have this kind of information sent to you over CM system, over email, or you can even pause the session or even terminate the session just after this kind of command was issued. So this is also important. You might consider improving your security, disabling this ability to do certain kind of things on your systems just by applying policies that act upon receiving this drop table, drop database, or format command. Okay, so I will keep this session open, although I will close my window, so you will be still able to watch this. We can also set the time limit for the session, and just before I close this window, let me show you that this is a live session, and we can actually rewind in this session and go back in time and see what the user was doing like 5 minutes ago, and watch the session 4 times as fast as normal, or maybe just switch between the user actions. So only it will skip over the idle time and just tell you what is the new action that the user performed in the past in this live session. So let's go back to real time. Oh, just I will close this, and let me switch to this console and notice. Oh, okay, so let me reload this session. Okay, so this column should be is the indicator for AI. So I think I made too few events in this session. So mouse clicks, mouse movements for AI to kick in and compare this session to the profile that it has created previously. So let me do some more work, and we'll see if this will improve this ability to detect the abnormalities of the sessions. And we did this by learning, by feeding Fudo with hundreds and hundreds of sessions. Oh yeah, it just switched to red. So it detected that the session looks different, and by different I mean it looks different than hundreds of sessions for ML test user that we fed to Fudo, which was actual recording of the session performed by some person outside of pre-sales or engineering department. So every time I log in now and do something, Fudo will detect that my mouse movements, which are kind of thumbprint for my person. So everyone has a different way of moving the mouse. So Fudo will detect this. This session differs from the profile that AI has learned. So you not only can spot this in real time, but let me show you, I just defined a filter, user filter that will show only the sessions that are considered by Fudo as critical or dangerous or critical. So this filter shows you the session is for live and previous sessions. So not only you can check what was the problem with the sessions in the past, but proactively it will check ongoing sessions. So a security officer or security administrator can take a look real time what in this session. So maybe this is not ML test, not the person that was supposed to be connecting, but some kind of hacker, or maybe someone shared a password and this is against your company policy. And yeah, you can basically verify what is going on. And with this view, this filter for high and low threat sessions, you'll get a proactive tool instead of a reactive tool. And let me show you, we are running, yeah, we have like 5 minutes of the demo left. So let me show you one cool feature that is coming in the next Fudo release, which is web client. Okay, so I'm switching to my other Fudo. So I believe I have contractor one here credentials that I can use. Yep. Okay, so again, zero trust. Besides the static password, now I'm reaching for my phone and launch Google Authenticator just to add a second factor authentication, which is the 6 digits code, 68755 something. And now I'm authenticated. With PAM system, you basically shift the authentication from the server side to the PAM side. So user can authenticate in many ways, like with static password, static Active Directory password, along with SMS, dual authentication, this Google Authenticator, and we are working on adding Okta authentication and FIDO2 keys authentication also. So basically, we now authenticated with 2 factors. So zero trust is also provided. We don't trust this person to just authenticate with static password, static password, sorry. And we require them to use the second factor in a form of Google Authenticator. So let me, again, I'm presented with the list of servers. And instead of just launching the connection to my account on the server, okay, so this is the traditional way, I can just click web, and in this browser, there will be a new session set up running in a browser. So actually testing for, oh, by the way, this screen, login reason, is there something that Fudo or PAM will ask the user for. What is the reason for connecting? So this goes into the session metadata. So actually, we didn't start the session to servers. It's just Fudo displaying this. So testing webinar access. Okay. For some reason, there was a timeout, so let's connect. Oh, sorry, I'm doing, I'm used to running a client, so let's connect again. Testing. Okay, so my session has started in a browser, so I don't really need any kind of client right now. All I need is the browser that will run this session. And this allows you to do pretty much everything except maybe for transferring files, because obviously with web client you don't have a TS client virtual server on the remote machine, but it's good enough to perform to just work on the server. And again, this session, let me just log into the console of the Fudo handling the connection. This session is live in the session list. Let me just, okay. So as you can see, this is live. I don't have AI turned on here because this is my demo, and this is actually the development version of Fudo. So I do not have this AI turned on. But if I had, I would be classified in a matter of seconds or minutes. Depends on the number of mouse movements, key clicks, and mouse clicks in the session. So yeah, you can. This is very nice. As you can see, the screen is a little bit smaller than my web screen, and this is because, and this was the case for the bank. They just restricted the resolution of the connection to 120 by 960 to keep the sessions size low, because the resolution directly affects the size of the session, because, well, basically this is a graphics, so you have to transfer this to your client. And I can just hide this session. I still have this running in the background, and let's connect to some Linux server. Again, I'm using the web client, and in a while I'll be connected to my Ubuntu server. Yes, I am. And let's change the colors. And I can do also well with SSH. You don't need much. You just have a text session, and from this session you can connect to other systems, or this could be your core router that you are starting to configure something there. So it is recorded. Let me show you again. A second session has been launched, and I can just keep on watching what the person or the contractor, in fact, is doing on this server. So this is the session, and yeah, I can just have it down there in the user access gateway and open as many sessions as I want, because those sessions are running in a web client in your browser. So this greatly simplifies the way to connect users to your infrastructure. You don't have to give them like new notebook to run multiple connections with VPN. You just need to get them access to this user access gateway. It could be done over the internet. It's if you're using HTTPS and certificates, you can easily do this over the internet, and the user will be able to access the infrastructure from the web browser. And 99% of the time, it's good enough to do serious work with this kind of approach. With Fudo PAM, basically.
Wonderful. Well, it's not quite all. I mean, we still have other things that we could talk about with Fudo, but of course these are the very core elements of Fudo PAM, and just giving you, I think, a really interesting and I think very professionally done demonstration of what Fudo can do. And I think on those points that you talked about, Rafal, especially with the idea of when you said this can be centralized, access can go through the web browser. If we're thinking about, as again, this whole idea of remote work as increasing, whereby just give you another bit of information here, that with remote work, that the average cost of a data breach now has risen by about $140,000. That's from IBM recently. So, and if we're looking at maybe even return on investment, that if we're looking at more and more still questioning the idea of remote work and where that's going, and you need secure tools and systems in place. With the ROI as well, it's also there. There was some study done just very recently by Global Workplace Analytics, which found out that a typical employer, a typical company can save just about $11,000 or 12,000 euros a year for every person who works remotely, just half the time. So then with Fudo as a tool, as something that enhances your business, it's all there, and it's also very safe. That's the idea here, to be safer. A lot of this was rushed. If we look back into the spring, when lockdowns were happening and shelter-in-place orders were coming into effect, we're experiencing rise of infections now. We're increasingly seeing that pain point with security as well. So all the recipe is there for, let's say, disaster if and this affects every industry, as we mentioned. So just very briefly to recap today, we're going to just again show what we talked about. So yeah, you should see it now. So what you've seen today, folks, is really just the real top-notch flagship solution here at work being demoed by Rafal. And you've seen this session recording, which shown with RDP sessions, work with SSH, various protocols, of course, with HTTP, HTTPS, which we're very proud of being very first to market, and this is just increasing. I mean, we've just had a chat about this with, for instance, IoT industrial devices. HTTP is big over there, so it's a huge sector, and this is increasingly becoming the reality. So, and with session recording, all that metadata, everything traveling through Fudo that is recorded, that is not a screenshot that you saw, that is all live, every single thing, that's not a screen grab. That's all the raw data that you see there, which is critical. Also, you've seen our AI, our biometric AI prevention with something like 4 or 5 million professionals lacking in the security space. There just simply isn't enough manpower to make sure that everything is happening and being above board. So now we're finally able to move from forensics very much into prevention. So in that time, you saw how quickly the AI reacted. This is the new one. This is not just simply a gimmick. This is something based on a lot of our work that has been a proven track record as a leading and rising PAM vendor, that we're able to offer this technology, which is working, which you've seen here today. And also one big important thing we're very proud of it, one-day deployment. We are able to deploy. Why is that so? Because it's simple. We have no agents, no plugins. Everything you get out of the box, we're able to able to deploy as hardware on site as well as virtually. So there are very, very many options, and it's been confirmed. KuppingerCole has done a report. You can check it out, guys, online. KuppingerCole report. We've been mentioned there, and it is verified. One-day deployment. That's all you need. It makes things easy and efficient. Whereas some competitors, won't mention any names, but they do tend to take a lot longer. So those are our key points here, but don't take my word for it. There might be some companies on this slide that you could potentially recognize who are using our solution and are quite happy with doing so. As you can see, it affects every industry, and it just is going to be a topic that continues to be at the forefront of many, many organizations, governments, companies, and it's not something to ignore. So I hope with that today, you're able to see some of the things that Fudo can do for you, what cybersecurity really should look like, what a proper system and solution, what a proper tool, as I said, a tool and an asset for your company to help you work better, to help work and make remote work finally safe and secure. And that is something that we're able to provide and help your organization with. Of course, there will be questions. Now is the time to ask. We're here and available for you. So we're going to open up now the floor to any questions at all from the audience. Feel free to type in the chat or just unmute your microphone directly. So are there any questions today? Seems, if there is nothing that is on anybody's mind, I know that it's in the morning, perhaps we still need a second cup of coffee. But if you do have any questions, we're happy to answer them. Please get in touch through our channel, social media, email, what have you. We're always available to answer your questions. Also to tailor for your industry, Fudo PAM, and how it works. Already given you a use case in terms of how a financial institution was able to utilize Fudo PAM. And maybe you're wondering, perhaps manufacturing, automobile manufacturing, we have that on our list. Oil and gas, energy, all on our list. We have various use cases which we've already covered today. if from like covering compliance to simply working more efficiently for training purposes. So as I said, it's a shield and a tool at the same time. So I wanted to just give my very special thanks to each and every one of you for joining us here today. I recognize some of the names here from our partner networks across the world, across Europe especially. So thank you for joining us this morning. Any questions, as Rafal has just shared, his email address there, presales@fudosecurity.com. And of course, thank you, Rafal, for showing us Fudo. It's always
Thank you
a pleasure.
for having me.
Thanks for the conversation. Thank you very much. And with that, I conclude this morning's webinar. We'll make this available for you to watch, and we hope to be in touch soon. So thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful day.